guys doing?
Good. Nice freaking shirt.
So I just had a few questions which I believe I mailed across, and we'll get right to them. So what was the whole rationale behind picking Roman Reigns and Becky Lynch as the face of the game?
The man. I mean, Becky's the man, and then we got the big dog. For us, it was it's time, right? Like with Becky Lynch, you're seeing just where we're at as a society, and also where WWE is at. We're promoting, like, you have women main eventing WrestleMania, Hell in a Cell. So it felt like the right choice. And then with Roman and his whole comeback story of him, beating cancer, it just, it kind of wrote itself, right? And for us to be part of that history and to be part of that story, it just felt like the right thing to do.
Perfect. We just tried the game out, and it's very realistic. It's almost like what we watch on TV. So my question is, how much are the characters involved themselves when it comes to creating the characters? Do you model it based directly on the characters?
Yeah, so we try to start our process like once we wrap up, this year's game. We go on the road and start getting photo reference and scanning people up until around WrestleMania. And so we'll let them know, like, hey, we have a photo shoot coming up with you guys. We're gonna capture your attire. And some guys try to hold off as long as possible, knowing that they might change their look a little bit. And then some guys like, oh yeah, I'm good. I'm probably gonna keep this for a while, and then change it. Like maybe on last Friday when Bailey cut her hair, right? Like, you never know. Right. So it's always tricky. But the guys do care. They care about their ratings as well. We heard it a lot this week. Some people were very upset about their ratings in the game. So it's one of those things where, like, I dig it. I find it amusing, and it kind of keeps us on our toes as well, right? Like, the fact that they are paying attention and do care what their likeness is like in a video game, or what their ratings are like in a video game, is great for us.
So can you tell us about some fun interactions that you may have had with some of the wrestlers?
Oh yeah, I will say my one of my best moments would probably be, I think it was WrestleMania 31. We're scanning Undertaker.
Okay.
And he walks into the room, and he sees our guy who handles all the scanning and stuff for us, and they're good friends. And I wasn't expecting him to talk or anything. I just I was scared. I was shaking a little bit. He comes up to me, and he's like, hey, this is our creative director, Lynell. He works on the game, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, how's it going? I'm like, oh my God, Undertaker spoke to me. And he shook my hand, and and they were like, okay, we need you to make all these different facial expressions or whatever. And he's like, and one of them was a smile. And he's like, the Undertaker doesn't smile. Wow. Or like, okay, we just need this expression. He's like, the Undertaker doesn't smile. We're like, okay, never mind. So that was a good one. But again, like, that was like a childhood dream come true for me.
Cool. And one of the things that everyone is talking about right now is the inclusion of Chyna in the roster. I believe it's in one of the special modes, right? So what was the whole decision like? I mean, why did you choose to include Chyna at this point?
Well, I think that the Chyna is included in the SmackDown 20th anniversary edition of the game, so the collector's edition of the game. And so obviously when we look at doing that, we're trying to pull together elements from SmackDown's history that we feel like are important. And so as we started to pull together Hogan and some of the other Rock and Mankind, when the opportunity came up, and it hasn't always been there, believe it or not, to get Chyna into the game, we jumped on it, and we're like, wanted to put her in as part of that offering, just because she is such an iconic part of that history. And, I think people are really going to dig on it.
Fantastic. One of the questions that a lot of our readers wanted to know is, you have certain wrestlers, like say Goldberg, eventually come back to WWE. It also happened with Sting, It also happened with the Ultimate Warrior, if I'm not mistaken. Was this a plan in progress, or was this a serendipity coincidence?
I don't know. Like sometimes, I think it happened with the Ultimate Warrior as well, right? Like I think there's some kind of kismet going on with our game and people coming back. I'm hoping that a Strowman or Frankenstein version of Braun Strowman appears on WWE television. That would be amazing. You know. So yeah, there's something cool going on that I'm hoping we have some kind of say in, because some of the designs we have in our originals content would be awesome in the WWE arena.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that WWE looks at our game as another test of what people like and are enjoying, right? So when one of those superstars from old days comes back and people pop to see they're in our game, I think it kind of makes that an easier decision for both the WWE and the superstar to say, well, maybe let's do this some more, because a lot of those guys, and we've heard this from a couple of the legends back, they felt like people didn't care that much about them anymore because they've been out of the spotlight for so long. And so, jumping back into the ring would seem like a huge step, but jumping into our game is not as big a step for them, So They get into the game, and then people react so strongly to them being in the game, they kind of lights that fire back in them to want to, get back in the business. So it's kind of cool to see that it works both ways,
Fantastic. And at the trial area, everybody was very excited about trying out the Fiend. Was he the most fun character to develop this season?
Yeah, that one was
the creepiest for sure.
Yeah, that came in at the very last minute. Like literally, we had one shot to get that done, and everything kind of fell into place. Like from getting, mocap scheduled to getting the reference to getting someone to work on the models and the animators to do the animation, to get the Trons from WWE to get the reference for his lantern. Like all of it had to come together, and we had one shot, and luckily we had a bunch of passionate people who were willing to put in that extra effort, even though they were already their plates were already full with whatever we had to get done with everything that was already going into this year's game. Everyone felt really strongly about working hard to make sure that we can get that one done, so that we can give users that last cool character that needed to be in this year's game. Frankly, like it's so out there, so cool, so different that it would have been a disservice not to have it in the game in some form.
Right. To find for both of you, were you lifelong WWE fans, or did the game reintroduce you to WWE in a sense?
I've gone in spurts. I was huge into WWE. I want to say E. When I was a kid, Hogan was my guy growing up. Ultimate Warrior was my guy, and then fell out of it in probably I would say the early '90s. I kind of fell out of wrestling, but in the late '90s, kind of got back into it once I heard that Hogan came back and was a bad guy and started this thing called the NWO, and I went all in again, and then kind of stepped away from it in the early 2000s and up until right before we got the license. I would say in 2011 was my kids started getting back into wrestling. I think The Rock and Cena were going hard on television, and I was like, oh, this is happening, and we kind of got into it, started watching WrestleMania, and it was, again, I think it was kind of fate that the license came to us right after that. So it's been, again, I used to work on the NBA franchise, and that was a dream come true, and this is another one of my dreams come true, working on a wrestling game. Mark?
Yeah, pretty similar. I mean, Lynell and I are amazingly pretty much the same age, so, we both grew up in the same era of the golden era of wrestling back in those days, right? I'm actually from Canada, so my earliest wrestling was with the Canadian Stampede Wrestling with the Hart Foundation up there. So I've always been a big mark for the Harts and everything that they did when they came back down into the WWE. But like Lynell, I mean, I think that in this is the story we hear from so many fans too, is, you know, in those years when you go off to college and you're trying to get your job going and stuff, you're so busy, sometimes you stop watching for a little bit, and I know that's what happened to me. So, you know, as I was trying to get bootstrapped in my career and then got married and had a family, it takes a little while, and then eventually you find your way back in. You know, I jumped in and out of it periodically, and I'd say I casually watched it through the NWO phase, just because it was hitting the news all the time. You couldn't ignore it. So, but yeah, I think that for me, I didn't really start watching it again until we came back to this franchise, and it's been fun. I've turned my wife into a hardcore wrestling fan now. Someone that had never actually seen a match. Now every time we get a chance to go to a live event, she wants to go. She loves live events. They're what drive her with this more than watching the TV. She just loves the energy of being in those arenas with the superstars. So, you know, and that's what I tell people, is like, it's almost like two products, even though you're watching the same thing. Like, watching it on TV is cool because you get all the access and you see everything. But man, when you go to a live event, you get a whole different level of appreciation as to what this is all about, and just how excited the other fans are about what's going on there too.
Fantastic. My final question, and we ask this to everyone we do interviews with. Do you have any funny stories about meeting Vince McMahon, or like any Vince stories? Was he intimidating?
I do. So yeah, WrestleMania 31 in Santa Clara. We're scanning a bunch of superstars. We're going to scan Mr. McMahon, and it's beforehand. So I'm going to the restroom, and so I'm leaving, and you know that moment where you're about to open up the door, and then the door kind of opens up by itself. You're like, oh, so you kind of step away, and lo and behold, there's Vince McMahon. He's like, how you doing? And I'm like, good. How you doing? Great. And then we're just staring at each other for a few seconds. All right. And then he just. So I'm like, that was interesting. I just had a nice little interaction with Mr. McMahon in the restroom. So, and he asked me how I was doing. Kind of awesome. So yeah, that's my Mr. McMahon story.
And Mark, maybe?
Yeah, no, I've not actually met Vince yet. I've met all the other McMahons, but not Vince. So, you know.
Cool. It was a pleasure to you, and fantastic game. Congratulations to the both of you. And I'm sure we'll all love playing it for the year to come.
I hope so too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.